Hey, what's going on, guys? I want to welcome you back to the Melanated Travelers Podcast, episode number 8. I have an amazing guest in the building. I'm super excited. But before we get into that, it's a few things that I want y'all to know. If you've been vibing with the podcast so far, whether you've been listening to us on all listening platforms or you've been checking us out on YouTube, if you're vibing with it, be sure to leave a review. Be sure to reach out to some of the guests. We have another amazing guest in the building, and I can't wait to dive into this episode. So, again, this is the Melanated Travelers Podcast. We call ourselves AKA the Green Book, AKA the #1 travel podcast in the world. So I have an amazing guest. I have Sam from A Perry Life. First and foremost, before I even get started, your content is absolutely amazing. It is absolutely amazing. I just
You.
gotta let you give you your flowers now at the beginning of the episode. I gotta give you your flowers now. Your content is amazing, and I can't wait to dive into Italy.
Thank
So
you.
let's get into it. I guess give the viewers and the listeners just a little background about yourself and how did you eventually end up in that amazing country.
All right. Well, hi, I'm Sam. Yeah, I've been in Italy now for almost 7 years. It was a complete accident. I literally met my fiance at a friend's birthday party in Italy, and that's what brought me there. But I'm a flight attendant, and I've been a flight attendant since the beginning of 2008. So I've always been a traveler. Before that, I was a foreign exchange student in the south of Brazil, and I did
Hmm.
my senior year there. So I just always have loved travel and cultures. And I am one of those people that didn't love Italy. I fell in love with an Italian. So it was a lot of mistakes and confusion and stuff that happened in the beginning of me moving there, and now I'm in a comfortable place and I've made friends and all that other stuff. And I feel like it is home now. You kind of go someplace and you feel like a visitor and you're trying to like get your footing. And it took a while, but I'm there and I love it. And I'm kind of privileged because I do live between both countries because of my job. So I'm able to have like both parts of La Dolce Vita. So yeah.
Hmm. That's amazing. So let's you know what I wanna backtrack for just a second, and
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure I gotta cover this question. Like, so you're actually the first person that I ever talked to in the in the flight industry, as a flight attendant. So like during COVID, how was that for you? Like you know
Oh,
some people
yeah.
would say we've seen a downtick in travel, but from what I've seen, I've seen an uptick in 2020.
Yeah, well, I worked throughout the first half of the pandemic. I didn't stop working until I was going to say, like, I think it was like the beginning of August is where I actually kind of stopped, or the mid-August is when I stopped traveling. And during that time, it was dead. It was like dead on arrival. I remember the beginning flights of going to cities and people being told that their resort shut down or where they were going, they were no longer able to go there. So like the airports were full of people trying to go home. So like the beginning, maybe like a couple of weeks, it was really hectic because people were preparing for the apocalypse. They were trying to go back to where they figured was safe. And then after that, it was empty. You go on a plane that seats 300 people, 300 plus people, and you'd have four passengers. So it was interesting. It was
Wow.
yeah, it was an interesting time to be actually in the industry. We just yesterday was 9/11, and everyone remembers what they were doing during that time. It's like a benchmark, and I think it's the same thing when it comes to
Mhm.
COVID and the aviation industry. We all remember what we did, whether you decided to work, take a break, or whatnot. So I worked the first half of it, and then I came back in March, and travel had already been back to kind of like normal. And now it's hectic. Now you have people, and I'm one of those people who likes to read up on what's going on with travel, and I buy
Mhm.
aviation airline stock and all the other stuff. And it's been a very successful year for airlines, so much so that with the pandemic, they allowed a lot of their employees to take early retirement packages, and they let too many people go. So you're like short staffed. And if there's weather, if there it's almost like the reserve is gone. So that's been something that we've been dealing with the last year and a half or so, of trying to rehire people and get them to stay. Everyone thinks they're going to go to sleep in London and wake up in Rome, and you don't realize you gotta go to Birmingham, you gotta go to, Baton Rouge, you gotta go to, the little towns in America, and you gotta like put that work in early into your career. Like, there are destinations that people have to staff it. So that's kind of what's going
Mhm.
on, is getting people who want to see being a flight attendant as a career. The money's good, the flexibility is good, but we all put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in the early years of our careers. So travel is back, and we're pretty excited about that. Yeah.
That's the first time. That's the first time I'll share this. Then we move on. But that's the first time. That's the first time that I've experienced just people. The societal norm started to shift. Like
Mm,
your flight attendants, your pilots, your I don't like saying janitor, custodial workers.
mm-hmm.
All these different professions that a lot of people overlooked for a very long time. They were very appreciated from 2020 up to now. Like people like they realize these things now, and that's something that I noticed. So I know it was crazy. I honestly didn't do too much in 2020. I just recently had my son, and I kind of slowed down a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
again, just really appreciate you for having a profession where you put your needs last, and take care of the people you know during their routes. We really
Thank
appreciate that.
you. Let me tell you, the foolishness is not gone though. Yesterday I was called a bee on the plane. So it's not
What?
gone. Like when you said that, I was just like there is not gone. You have, and of course the person was walking off, and you kind of charge it to the game.
Yeah, that's
Um,
what they do.
yeah, but you just have to remember to be kind within yourself. It's like hopefully the energy you put out is what you receive. So yeah, thank you. I love what I do,
Oh,
and I'm really proud to be uh, a flight attendant. So yeah.
no problem. So, like dating the Italian. Like let's talk about some of the that actually is going to lead into the country. Like some of the norms. We talked about norms, but some of the cultural norms, or maybe even cultural differences that maybe he broke some of the stereotypes that you had with
Yeah.
Italians, and then vice versa. Let's get into that.
Oh wow, yeah. You know what? I'm in a really interesting relationship. I'm 34. I'll be 35 in November, and my partner just turned 59. So there's a 24-year age gap. And so we have a like it's intersectionality type of situation. You've got generational differences, cultural differences. You have like just like if, let's say for example, if I dated a white guy in the States, certain things would he would kind of maybe get like a lot more grilled on for not knowing. But when you date someone from a different country, you have to have a different amount of patience, because you're like, these people really don't know a lot of what happened. And I got grilled out once on TikTok about this, because I kind of gave Italians a little bit of a pass, in the sense of the colonization that they did was so much smaller on the grand scale of things, in comparison to their peers. If you compare it to the UK, to Portugal, to the Netherlands, so they definitely, it's not to take away the damage that was done to Ethiopia, Eritrea, the countries that they did invade,
Mhm.
but they did such a good job of, once that was done and they didn't succeed and they were ousted from those countries, they did such a good job of acting as if that was just a mistake, and that like they kind of wiped it from history, kind of what they're doing now in Florida. And that's why it's really important that like Black history and
Mhm.
things of that sort are properly told in schools, because what's happened in Italy is that it's got like, they don't know. The only thing that they have familiarization with is the stereotype. So what you would see, like they think, oh, it's it a Black guy who looks like he might have money, or he's wearing a gold chain, he must be a rapper. Like that type of thing. Oh, it's a Black
Mhm.
woman that's skinny,
Mhm.
she must be a model, or something like that. There's automatically these stereotypes. And when you end up dating somebody who is from a different generation, just think of like hanging out with one of your grandmother's best friends, and explaining to her who Sexy Red is. She'll be like, who? So it's like, yes, grandma, but where is Pound Town? You know, like those little basic things. So it's sort of kind of like that when it comes to Italians. Like they have none of it. So it's a type of a patience that you have to have. And I would encourage anyone who is um thinking of getting into an interracial relationship and they are going to date somebody who's from a country that like Italians are so much in their little bubble that they have an issue with being called out being wrong as well because they're just only in their bubble. And the way that they're taught that this is the way things should be done and you should be proud of this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're dating somebody who is from Italy, you have to have more patience and you also have to have a lot of pride and you have to educate yourself with who you are, what you're not willing to budge in. Um, you have to take the time out to learn certain things about their culture and say, okay, this is a cultural thing and then this is racism. Because sometimes, and that's why I have this little series on my Instagram where I say things you shouldn't get upset about in Italy or whatever, because there's some things that in the Black culture, if you go to the bank and they don't give you your money in your hand, you're gonna be like, what the hell? But in Italy, they
Mm-hmm.
put it on the counter. It doesn't matter. So they're little things that we would take as racist or passive aggression that is normal in the culture, and then there are things that you can look at and be like, okay, this is racist. So it's a lot of patience because you have to like take that time to like learn what is the norm. And the only way you can learn what the norm is to experience it over a certain amount of time. So it's like, oh, okay, like this isn't directed at me. This is directed at everybody. And then, okay, all right, this person is following me in the store. He's being racist. He ain't following everybody. So it is interesting. I'm aware that, I'm the only person and I ask my partners these questions about, his experience with people of color, or Black people, but really just people in color in general, because it's not like he even has like Native American friends. It's really just like white, white, white. And a lot of the Black people that Italians have experience with are typically people who come to the country as refugees or seeking asylum. So like I said, it's a lot of patience, it's a lot of educating, it's a lot of, learning their culture and making sure that your culture is properly respected. Because if I don't correct my partner and he's doing something that respects my culture, unless I want my family to slap the crap out of him when he does it in front of them, you know what I mean? I have to, the proper way for
Mm-hmm.
me to protect him is to educate him. This is not right. And to say, like, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
understand that you might not think it's a big deal, but this is a big deal. And you can't define what's racist to me. You can't define what's aggression to me. If I'm saying that, hey, if we're walking down the street, you need to stand on the side where the cars are. I'm on the inside. If I say that, you have to like, okay, this is a cultural thing. Some people don't do it, but let me just tell you, these are the optics that certain people in my culture see it as. So it is a learning process. You have a lot of tears, a lot of frustration, a lot of moments, especially if you don't speak the language fluently, you can't properly defend yourself. So that's where I'm at. Because now I'm like, I can
Mm-hmm.
understand, but I don't know how to cuss y'all out. So that's the thing that I'm going, I'm like, oh man, like how do I like reel this back in and make sure that these stereotypes are corrected? So yeah.
Mm. You hit on a lot. You hit on a lot with that one. I hope y'all listening to this, y'all, because this is a perspective. This is actually the first perspective from somebody that's actually dating somebody outside of their culture on this podcast. So I want people to gain this insight. And it sounds like to me that you're also, you also have some red lines that is like, look, this is some things that I'm not going to cross, but you're also willing to give and take on some things too as well. So
Hmm.
that leads me to my next point. A lot of Americans, a lot of people from the UK, or people that's so used to being I feel like whenever they travel to these countries, people are supposed to just automatically bow down at their feet because they're Americans, and um, things are supposed to be the same. Like, can you go into that? And it's a personal vendetta for me, honestly, because it bothers me. Especially I travel to South America a lot, and I see it a lot in the way the way they treat the locals, or they expect a certain level of expectation when it's a totally different culture, which you already pointed on. But can you
Mm.
just add that in? I know you see tourists come. I call it the big four, right? The big four in Italy. Florence, Rome, Venice, and Milan. So
Yeah.
I know you've seen it. From living there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it from like, I mean, literally the perspective of living there, and I bring the passengers over. I work those flights, that's the route that's my
Mm,
preferred route.
mm,
I just came back from Venice yesterday as a flight attendant. And I think a lot of people that come to these countries with privilege, because that's really what we have, is privilege. No, like I understand in the States we are a marginalized like group or whatnot, but when you come to when you come to Italy, when you come to Spain, you come to these countries and you have, UK passport, Canadian, American passport, whatever, you are privileged. You just by where you were born, you're privileged. In a lot of ways, that's what we're fighting for in the States, of making sure that there's equality. But will it ever happen? I don't know. But the reality is that I don't know if it'll happen in this lifetime, but the reality
mm,
is that you come over and there's a sense of privilege. And I see a lot of, I mean, people of all races, they come and they are unfamiliar with cultural norms and they behave like Karens. So let's say, for example, and you can be a black Karen, you can be a person from Latin America and be a Karen. They come and they sit down in the restaurant and they're like, I've been waiting a long time. And in Italy, for example, um, they don't staff restaurants the same way they do in the States. So I worked at a steakhouse for years, part time. That was the perfect way for me to, up my customer service game, learn a different culture, food, and all this other stuff. And at this steakhouse, they would give one server 3 tables. It was a high end steakhouse. In Italy, you would have one server for like 15 tables. So they're paying the server an hourly wage. Um, and in Italy as well, like they can't just fire you. There's this thing in Italy, it's a I guess a technicality, but after 1 year of working at a company, you get a permanent contract and they basically can't fire you. So um
mm,
people go to these restaurants and they will not understand that this is the only server. So it is going to be a slower situation. Or they'll go to the restaurant and the servers will put the bread on the table. And that's where you are literally breaking bread. You're grabbing the bread with your hands and you are doing the quote unquote breaking of bread. And oh, we wanted plates and you didn't give us plates. I get it. I get it. But at the same time, it's like culturally, this is very normal, the experience that you're having. So if you want something outside of the norm, you can get it, but you have to have more patience. So like I see it all the time. And there's
mm.
an uptick right now of people who are traveling throughout Europe and desecrating monuments. There is the Colosseum had its name, people wrote their name in it. People are jumping
Yes.
into the Trevi
Mm,
Fountain, going into the Venice. And a lot of people are also attributing that to COVID, of people who are getting out of the house and now they want to be social media famous and they're doing whatever they can do to make a name for themselves. But there's certain things that and that's I try my best to kind of like explain what people will experience when they visit Italy. But the reality is that not everything is written. It's sort of kind of like, you go to a new job and you have a handbook and they're like, this is the silliest thing ever. Why is this in there? And it's like, because somebody broke that rule and they had to add it. And it's like, if you have to add all of the things that are considered cultural norms or things you'll experience in these countries to tourists, it's nobody would read it. They have Lonely Planet and tons of podcasts and stuff, and a lot of these
mm,
podcasts should be getting a lot more visibility than they are, because they are explaining to people the information is out there. Some people rather get like a 60-second video or a 2-minute video on TikTok, and then they get upset when they go to the country and they don't like the restaurant they ate at. It's like, well, you shouldn't be mad at the restaurant. You should be mad at the person who suggested you go to the restaurant. There's plenty of other options. So that's where it's
mm,
like, it's frustrating because the information's out there. There's more information available now than, literally every second there's more information available. And a lot of people aren't properly utilizing it. And then a lot of people are looking at the customer service training that they received in their country and expecting it to be the same as they travel, or or whatever cultural norm. So it's interesting, it's frustrating. I've learned not to argue. I've had people that, I mean, I've seen TikToks that were about me, and I'm just like, okay. I'm at the point now, I'm like, I'm not going to argue with that. My whole mission is just joy, peace, love. Like if you're stressed out, so many flare ups, people end up having like diseases that pop up, and it's like, oh, well, you were stressed out, and that's why you had this disease. So I try to keep things as easy as possible, because literally nothing's going to be perfect. Here in the States, I see stuff on the news all the time. It was just a thing in the Dollar General in Jacksonville. So I'm like, how is there a real way for me to, where would you feel safe? I mean, literally, where would you feel safe? Where would you feel comfortable, outweighing, what is and is not good? And also, once again, recognizing my privilege. There are people who are from countries in Italy that aren't respected the way that I am just because I have a blue passport. So that's another thing. That's one way
Mm,
to fix the issue, is when you recognize that we want white people to recognize that there is a privilege. They are on a higher pedestal in the States. So who am I to be a Black woman, an African American woman that lives between two countries, that, that has nice things? I'm a hypocrite if I do not recognize those same things while I'm in Italy. There's somebody on the totem pole, I'm higher than someone else. So,
mm.
I hope that answered your question.
No, 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 no. You good. You giving out a lot of different gems. So would you say that um which you already answered the question, but I'll say it just for people that might be watching or listening that want to ask it, right?
Mhm.
In Italy, is it more so? To me, it sounds like it's more so classism and culturalism than racism in Italy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, I don't, I don't know. I don't know
I,
if you want to dive into that. Like, I'll give you
yeah,
an
no.
example. Like
Hmm.
in Peru, like it's more so classism. If you don't have a dog, like a very expensive dog in Peru, then people know that you're not living in these type of neighborhoods, so to speak.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
kind of dive into that. I guess, just from the outside looking in, and now that you're there, how do you see that? Is it really visible, or it's more so like it's just cultural?
No, it is. You know what? It's Italy is a country that's really big on nepotism. So the two go into hand. The nepotism, the classism, the racism, they're all intertwined in Italy. Yes, there is racism, of course, and Italy's definition of racism is different. The way that Italians will translate it, and I think that's something like I've taken the time to like try to like think like an Italian in some ways, because sometimes like that makes no sense. But to them, it's like die hard makes sense. And you're like, okay, like I
Mm-hmm.
have to stop. And it's just like with politics, where you feel that you have to also watch conservative news, because there's no way that, or liberal news, however, which party you're on, but you have to watch it to understand how they think. Because if not, how can you tackle what you consider a problem? So, with racism, of course, they have right now Meloni is their prime minister. She's basically a what do they call it? She's a Mussolini, so she's super fascist. And so, of course, that was like big drama because she was voted into power in parliament. Um, it's really hard. Like I said, okay, let's take an example, right? Let me try to, I guess, break it down. With nepotism, you have to know somebody to be able to move up in a lot of the ranks. It's horrible. It exists in our society as well. It's just much more prominent there, and it's almost like much more understood. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And with that, how many people of color in Italy know someone in power? So if you think of that, how the system is designed, it's rigged to benefit people of a certain race, because it's like, well, you have to be, like the nephew of Fabrizio or the this, or you go somewhere and you'd be like, oh, yes, this guy who is my neighbor told me I need to talk to this guy. And they'll be like, who is it? Who? Okay, yeah, okay, come in. And you just skip the line. So how many of those people
Mm-hmm.
that are coming over from other countries, and also considering that um, the influx of people of color coming into Italy is a recent thing. I'm going to say just like in the last like maybe generation or two. So there's not many, let's say like, for example, they have, like people who've been speaking French for hundreds of years. In Italy, it's okay. You have people that are coming over and they have to learn French, or they like look at Kabi, the superstar TikToker. He was
Mm-hmm.
raised in Italy, identified as an Italian, but the system isn't designed to benefit people like them. I have a person, I mean, he got his Italian citizenship once he got his fame, but I have a girlfriend who's from the Congo who, because she didn't spend at least 3 years, because she was out of the country for 3 years, when she was under the age of 18. So her parents were taking her back to the Congo, whatever. She is Black from Africa. Because of that, she does not qualify for Italian citizenship. So that's the systematic racism that happens, that Italians don't necessarily identify or recognize, because of the fact that it's like it's like out of sight, out of mind. It's so distant what happens to people of color with them. So yes, racism exists. And I mean, even if you think of like, excuse me, in the work group there, a lot of Italians, they don't know how to handle that. They'll say like, you'll address something to them and they'll be like, oh no, that's not happening. Oh no, that's nothing. Oh, they didn't mean that. Blackface was, I think it's the news channel Rai, but don't quote me on that. Not until 2021 or 2020 is when they stopped blackface from being allowed on their network. Like literally, you would see performers, very famous people in Italy coming out dressed like Whitney Houston with 4C hair,
Oh.
skin all over, Stevie Wonder, like everything, like literally in full face blackface. So, and it was just recently, until it was like after years and years and years and years and years and years and years of outrage, they're like, okay, we'll stop this. Or if something happens, they make an excuse. Oh, he didn't know, he didn't this is that. So that's how Italians are very interesting in when it comes to that. And that's why I say that I have to recognize that I'm privileged, because a lot of that I don't have to deal with firsthand. So a lot of people are dealing with it. But like, if you are coming from North America, I mean, most men from other countries aren't moving to Italy because the pay is very low. You see more women moving there for love, to be pasta makers, to be this. You see more of that. The salaries are such a joke in Italy, and there's not a lot of men that want to move over there. But you end up finding yourself in a space of like breaking away from their systems, and that's where you might be like somewhat of an entrepreneur, because the system is designed to help only Italians. So that's just something people have to expect when they go there. It's going to be a little bit harder, and you're going to get paid a lot less.
You brought up an interesting point, and if you don't know about this, that's fine. But I just scrolling. I've seen it a couple of times. Is that program valid? The one where they say you can buy houses over there for $1?
€1 house. Yeah.
That is it. So it's valid. That's valid.
Yeah, that is something that exists. Most of the houses are in rural areas. What they're trying to do is they're trying to revitalize those areas. I think that program needs to be completely revamped. And I am not connected in that industry, so I think my ideas probably will not be listened to at all. But there is the €1 home thing. Supposedly what it is that you have to fix the house within a certain amount of time. And I think it's like 3 years. You have to use local contractors. And as of right now, majority of the homes are in areas that are basically, it's in shambles. So what most people have suggested is that you just find a home if you want to live outside of a major city, where you'll find a much more affordable home. A home that's not as run down, that costs a little bit more, that has less strings attached. But it does exist. I think like right now it's basically in Sicily where you see most of, and even with that program, in certain areas where it was implemented, there was nepotism and some rigging that happened with that as well. Like, oh, €1 home, we're gonna hook it up with this person's daughter. So yeah, but it does exist.
Gotcha. Let's talk about some of the. I guess we could talk about the big four first, since everybody knows about those. Um, just some of the top attractions, some of the things that you enjoyed, and maybe some things that not it won't necessarily show up on TripAdvisor, that you being over there so much, some outside maybe smaller cities or smaller towns that you can recommend for people. I guess we could start off with just asking you, what's your favorite out the four? You know?
Florence. My town is hands down the favorite out the door. It's a great walking city. It's pretty, has a lot of history, lots of museums. Um, if you're going to visit and also live, I do really love Florence. But I guess second to that, out of those, because I would say Milan. So Florence, Milan, and then I guess maybe Rome and Venice. I've only been to Venice a few times. It's a walking city. It's a lot of water. So people say it smells kind of funny, all that water and the humidity and not being able to
Mhm.
properly breathe through. Um, but something that doesn't probably get enough attention, that kind of is slowly getting more attention, is Puglia, the region of Puglia. It's in the southern part of Italy. It's the heel of the boot, and it has tons of culture. It's known for its seafood and wonderful vegetarian dishes. Um, it's one of those cities where majority of the region has something really great to see, and a lot of it is developed. A lot of southern regions, um, they're not as developed. It's like rural. It's going to a village. It's not going to like a
Mhm.
town. You're going to a village. And in Puglia, you actually see cities. You see completed roads. You see, um, there's the exposure to people who are traveling or tourists is much higher. So definitely Florence, Milan, I guess Venice, then Rome, I guess you would say. And then outside of that will be Puglia that you
Mm.
should visit. Yeah.
Everybody likes to go. Everybody likes to go to Rome. To see the Colosseum. But outside of that, for me, what makes me excited about this episode, I'm writing all this stuff down. By the way, I'm a big architecture guy, so I have an architecture background, and just seeing the architecture just in Italy, period. I mean,
It's
is
amazing.
absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
amazing.
beautiful.
You've been to Italy?
No, no, I'm actually planning. I'm planning to go. I'm trying to squeeze it into December. I'm trying to squeeze it into. Um, right now, next week I'll be back. I'll be back in Colombia, more so for business, but I'll be
Mm.
back. But yeah, honestly, I haven't touched the European continent yet. So that'll be my
Oh.
first country. Yeah,
Well,
that'll be the first one.
Italy's one of my favorite places, like because it has people are so familiar with it, like not just cities there, like the entire country. I've always said that if you think of let's say European countries, we're not even going to give. There's some people who think that Africa's a country, but let's just say from different European countries, you know, we're not even going to delve into that. But if you just think of like European countries, and if you tell a person like, okay, name 5 cities in the UK, they'll name London, and then they might name like, they'll name something, Gatwick, something that maybe is like around an airport type of thing. If you say the same thing in France, they'll name Paris, of course. They might say Nice or Cannes, or, Bordeaux. It'll be something around wine. But if you think of like Italy, people know not just cities, but they know regions. They know very small towns and villages. And
Mm,
that's people, I don't think people think about it, that as popular as Italy is to the world, there is so much of the world that Italians are so like obtuse to. And Italy is one of those countries where English is very, not a lot of people speak English there. If you do speak English, most likely you have parents that had a little bit of money and that can afford a tutor. It can send you abroad to study. But it's one of those countries where a lot of people come to visit and people don't understand. It's not a country that people there visit outside. Like people in Italy, they will literally visit, they'll have their home that they'll be at year round, except in the summer where they'll go to their summer home in Italy. So there's not a lot of movement around that ends up happening. So I definitely encourage people to go to Italy and to give I say give Italians grace, little bit more grace and patience. I know somebody's gonna be like, she's an apologist, but I'm honest. A little more
Yeah.
grace because of their lack of exposure and their colonial history in comparison to countries like France and the UK and all the other ones that I named earlier. It's a great time. You have a great time. And I see like so many people online, when people say something negative about Italy and you see someone will be like, I had a great time in Italy. I'm going back. I never discount someone's experience, never discount the experience. I'm like, that probably happened. When someone tells me something crazy, I'm like, that probably happened. And then it also could be a misunderstanding, but it happened. Let me tell you what might have been the thought process of that person and why you probably right in your thought process. But definitely
Hmm.
visit Italy. It's a wonderful place. And it's affordable. It's like a really affordable place to visit.
What's the currency? What's the currency there in Italy?
Euro. It's a
Euro.
euro. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's the euro. It's the Europe, yo. I see the question down below. Somebody was afraid to ask it, so I figured I'd throw it out there to see
Oh,
if it's
is
anything
it live?
local.
Are people watching
Uh,
us?
yeah, I have
Oh,
people in the chat. Yeah, they asking questions, just throwing it
oh,
out there. He was like the guy was like, hey, look, I'm kind of ashamed to ask this, but what's the currency? It's fine, man, and that's what this is about, to learn. It's perfectly fine. Ask away, y'all. Um, so the next question, I see here in the chat that they're asking about foodies. We got a lot of foodies in the chat. Some
yeah,
some places that you really enjoyed. I guess out of the main four, or maybe some outside, but like just some restaurant recommendations, some eateries, if not restaurant recommendations, or just some local things that they should try, because it's a big difference between real Italian and Italian that we eat over here.
yeah,
Huge difference.
yeah. It is. And one thing I would suggest is that anyone who goes to Italy, um, whatever your perception of Italian food, just get rid of it. Because a lot of people, they come over and they're looking for something that is Americanized Italian. You know what I mean? It's completely
Mm,
different. So if you go there, just enjoy whatever they give. Italians are really big on their courses. So if you go to a restaurant, you're going to get an antipasto, you're going to get a primo piatti, you're going to get a secondo, and then you're going to get like a dessert. So it's like you will have like an appetizer, and then
mhm,
you'll have it's a pasta dish, which is the traditional way that it goes down, and then it's a meat dish, so it's either like red meat or fish, and then the dessert. That's kind of just like the common basic way, and you can get like a side, which they call contorno. um and every region is known for their specialty. In Florence, we're known for our steak, our bistecca, which is our steaks are known for being big monster thick pieces of steak. It's really delicious. Italians are not big on heavily seasoning their food. They kind of they'll give you a big piece of steak. Guys, they're gonna cook it medium rare, medium at the most. I would suggest they're they're not gonna overcook it. They're gonna give it to you. It's gonna be red in the center, and if they'll slice it for you, and if you want a piece cooked more, you can send that piece back. But they won't burn your steak for you because they can cook more, but they can't cook it less. You know what I mean? So like
mm,
if it's when it's burnt, it's
mhm.
burnt. So it's gonna be red on the inside. If you've never had a steak like that, it's really good, good quality. A lot of the food in Europe has a stricter restrictions on the raising of the food, and a lot of like the processing and the ingredients that we're used to in the States that we don't even know that we're used to. A lot of that is not in the food in Europe and Italy. So get a nice steak if you are in Florence. Rome is known for their pasta. So if you want a carbonara, which is a very popular pasta, or a cacio pepe, go to Rome. You can get it pretty much anywhere, but there are certain places that it's just like kind of getting like what's a Louisiana dish, like a gumbo or crawfish or
Gumbo,
something. Yeah,
gumbo, crawfish etouffee. Yeah,
it's
we
like
call
going
that with
somewhere
the yeah,
else.
with the yeah.
Like, when you go there, you're like, oh my God, like I got to get this because this is how it's supposed
Uh-huh.
to be. So every place has it, has their like, or you can just ask your waiter and they'll oh yes, try this. You know, Oh my gosh, fish. If you go to Puglia, they're known for their mussels, and their seafood mussels. A majority of the mussels that the country uses come from Puglia. Um, and not in Florence, in Venice, they have these little. We call it a crostini, but it's called a cicchetti in Venice, and it's like a little, like almost like a baguette that's been cut up, and they put all of these different toppings on it. And it's just, you have to have an open mind. If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. So if you go to a different country
Hmm.
looking for what you got at home, why do you leave? You know what I mean? So I always encourage people to go out and just, I don't like escargot, but if I am in France and someone orders it, I'll try eight. I don't like the snail in the little, but you got to try it at least once. You got to try it at least once.
I'll try. Somebody's been really doing some research on your TikTok, so they want to know. They want you to dive deeper into some of the underrated places. And you brought up about the
About
one of the towns.
Puglia.
So you have Puglia.
Yeah.
Do you have any others that's underrated that people should visit while they're there?
I wouldn't necessarily say like me like the whole region of Puglia. I love going to Martina Franca. I love going to Alberobello, but like just in general, if you have a U.S. passport, not a U.S. passport, U.S. driver's license, excuse me, you would have to have a passport to go to Italy. Rent a car. Rent a car. Italy is such an
Mm,
easy place to drive in. Um, you will see a lot. And every little area has something. That's the great part of it. Every little, and if you go to a little area, if like, and it's not an area that has a lot of people of color, like you will have people stare at you, but it's all like kind of like a very innocent stare. And there isn't like this fear, like you drive into the wrong part of the US and you're like, we getting gas somewhere else. Get back in the
yeah,
car. It's
yeah.
not like that. It's not one of those feelings. You're like, okay, and you're looking around and you'll see like a little, we call a nonna, a little grandmother, like sitting there, maybe having a glass of wine at 10 a.m. And you'll see it'll be very chill and you'll be like, okay. And if you wander into a little restaurant, they're not going to be like, no, none of you'll see like this type of hospitality and curiosity and kind of pride in this. Yes, 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 try that. You want a pasta? Okay, it'll be the energy is typically something that is very warm and inviting. And I've driven just about the entire Italian country almost. I'll rent a car and I would drive to Milan. I would drive to Rome. I would drive to the East Coast, and I have not had a bad experience. So, I mean, there's always like the cliche places, telling a person to go, go to the Amalfi Coast and have an aperitivo, and I can kind of say like that stuff. But I would say outside of going to popular areas or areas near the popular area, literally just look at some of these smaller content creators of color and that are not natives in that look up the hashtag. I'm kind of against the term expat, but I do understand the
Mm,
necessity for that word of reaching out to English speakers. So follow that hashtag, or look up that hashtag and look at people who are in the country that you want to go to, and from that look at their restaurant suggestions, look at where they are and what they're doing, and also be a little bit more realistic about what you want to do, because I've had people that say to me like, oh, is there any like R&B lounges, and I'm just like, where? R&B lounges where? In Italy? Nah, you gotta go to France. You gotta go somewhere else. It's just it's so tone deaf. It's like, okay, we gotta read the room. You know what I mean? I'm like, I get it. I'm like, no, you might get some in Milan, or you might get some in Rome, but no, if you go into a small town, you're not gonna find anybody listening to D'Angelo. We got you have to play it in your car. If you want Jilly from
mhm.
Philly, you're gonna have to do that on your own, because they're not gonna know anything about what you're talking about. Like what? Like no, and plus Italians eat dinner so late. A lot of that, like the lounging stuff, it's so it's something that you see much younger people doing. It's crazy, but once you get up into like a later crowd, 35, 40, yeah, it's they tapping out. You don't really see any of that activity going on. But rent a car.
I see it. I see it. I got y'all. I got y'all. So the next question, we all know that you're a flight attendant. But the viewers and the listeners want to know: do you have any travel hacks that you do, or maybe some apps that you use, outside of the airline that you're with,
hmm
that you want to share with the people?
Well, I rarely do Airbnbs anymore on my own. I prefer a hotel. I want security and all the other stuff, and that's just one thing. I just don't really fool with Airbnbs anymore. When I'm on the plane, I always bring a pair of disposable slippers. Those I use on the plane, and I mean, like my suitcases are right here. I bring the disposable slippers. I always have a little bag with, um, like this. Literally looks look one of these like an amenity kit. I'll have like socks, a toothbrush, those things you need on a plane. If you are going from the US to Europe, you have to look at the time of the destination where you're going. So typically you're leaving in the early evening in the US and you arrive into Europe in the morning. So that means on your flight you need to sleep. So do not watch John Wick 4. Do not go to sleep. Go to sleep, because what happens is that people stay awake the entire flight, and then what are you expecting to do? Hit the ground running in the country you're going to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need to take half a melatonin, half a Benadryl, eat on the plane and go right to sleep, because you're going to regret it, and it's your kind of your cheat to make sure that you can enjoy the country as much as possible. You want to enjoy the country that you're spending money to be in. I always bring I bring a warm water bottle, one of those heating bags. If I'm cold on the plane, I have the flight attendants put some hot water in it. Um, and I mean, I try to do as much research on my own, just looking at TikTok and things of that sort, and asking my friends. A lot of your friends need to ask them the real experience. So like and I've had this happen on my TikTok before, and I talked about it a while back, how you'll see people that'll tell you one experience on TikTok, and then on their Instagram they're all posing just another day in Italy. And I'm like, no, tell your followers in Instagram your experience too. On TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of this race baiting, and it's just like, I had a racist experience. And I'm just like, if you had that, you need to share it with your followers. So you want to get a lot of followers on TikTok and have a lot of traction on your page. And then on Instagram, now you're posing and people think it's a great country. If I went somewhere and I thought it was, if I had an ex that I thought was a POS, best believe I'm not posting him. So you cannot post that and give this false. So you need to like do your research or do justice on the social media people who you are following and getting this advice from. Because right now, there's tons of people who are experts in all of these countries. And the reality is that they just had some videos that were edited well, that looked nice, that,
Mm-hmm.
they went viral and they got traction. And now everything is, oh yes, this is the best coffee place in all of Turin. And you look at it and you're like, okay, that's great. I'm going to try it. This person has no qualification on what is the best coffee shop. She new
Mm-hmm.
here. You the new kid on the block. How you know it's the best place? So, I would really suggest that a lot of people will post on one social media platform one thing, and on the other a completely different thing. So definitely do the research, especially with who you're following, because it could put you in a really unsafe position as well. So you want to make sure you do that.
Yeah, and so what's some advice to the people that's been on the fence? And I'm gonna share these statistics with you, and I
hmm
do it every episode, and I love the reactions I get. So in the U.S., only 49% of African Americans travel domestically. In the United States, and only 17% of us travel internationally.
hmm
And how do those numbers that the first part of this question is how do those numbers, how do you feel about those numbers and your reaction? And then secondly, to add to that, to reverse engineer that for the people that's on the fence about traveling overseas, how do you encourage that person to finally get over that hump?
Well, yeah, I did a video about this not too long ago, where I talked about, I think it's like only like 56% of Americans have passports. That's the crazy part. So then you break that down to people of color. Like I didn't know those
Mm-hmm.
statistics about people of color, but I'm not surprised because so few actual Americans have passports. Um, I I went to a school in South Florida, and like I grew up in South Florida, and I had friends from all over, and they definitely my curiosity was piqued. Also, I mean, I guess it starts even before then. I was a Girl Scout, right? I was a Girl Scout, and I was the only Black girl that kind of stayed throughout for like later elementary years. I think I
Mm-hmm.
stopped in middle school, and with that, I became like curious of other cultures. And then from that to high school to being around Brazilians, and my best friend was Mexican and different languages and all this other stuff. um I realized that I was typically like the only person of color who was doing some of the things that I was doing. So I'm not surprised that the numbers are low. I'm actually, I'm always I'm on the plane, so I see it. There's only a few of us, and it's so funny because I just got yesterday I waved to this Black woman in Venice. I didn't know her. And then today she messaged me. She's like, I just saw you in Venice. And I was like, oh my God. Because anytime I see a person of color abroad, I'm like, my sister. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like super excited because I'm like, yes, go out, like experience all the things. Like the reality is that no matter how much we want to make it seem as if it doesn't exist or we want to downplay it, racism exists everywhere on every single I think every single corner of this planet in some shape or form. Racism, colorism, featureism, all of the isms and all the other stuff. And it's okay, which type of racism will I be able to tolerate? You know what I mean? When I'm in the States, I stay home. I'm very happy and
Mm-hmm.
blessed to have this really tiny little apartment here in New York where I have cheap rent, great landlords, and I can exist in my own little world. But I'm aware of what goes on outside, and I'm afraid. So when I see people of color, like Black people, whatever, Latino, whatever, when they're talking about traveling, I'm like, do it. You have to do it. You have to. Um, your world will be changed, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to. The first time you do it, if you have a bad experience, you have to try it again because that experience most likely, unless you look and I follow a lot of different travelers who give their perspective, and I've seen a consistent negative review about a specific country, and I was just like, all right, enough people have told me about this country. I'm not going there. Like I'll wait.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you have to make sure that you do your due diligence, that you talk to people, that you look at travel advisories, and there's so many people of color that are voicing their opinion about travel. So you have to like look for those people because they're out there. The Black expat is out there. The Black traveler is out there. The Black person living abroad is out there. And a lot of us are struggling to get our stories out and to be seen. I'll be honest, like our white counterparts can literally do something that is like so little research done to it, and they get like tons of praise, and then we put a bunch of work into it,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh my God, like this video that took me an hours to edit, and then I had to export it, and then I had to upload it, this whole thing, and you're like, oh great, I got 50 views, you know what I mean? Or I got like maybe one new subscriber from it. And it's the consistency of staying encouraged to continue to tell your story. And that's part of like my thing on TikTok. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care who does or does not like it. I want Black women because I can't, the Black men have there's a lot of stuff going on there. Yeah, I got red pill. I'm like, I don't want to get into the food fight. I don't want to get over to the food fight. I'm like, but with Black women, I'm like, I want them to get out and to see that they shouldn't be afraid, that they are appreciated, that it's not fetishization if they do fall in love with a person of color. I've never felt so beautiful with natural hair until I was with my partner. I cut my hair off 2 years ago. I mean, my hair's been cut since I was like 14, 15. But like just like that grungy, natural, Sealy. You know, Sealy before Suge came and said, "You is ugly." When I'm like that, my man is like, "You is fine." So like when you get to that point, you know, it's just like, oh man. And it's not that no one else can give it to you, you know what I mean? But there's a the curiosity, and there is fetishization in the States. They're everywhere. There's positives and negatives, and everyone can look at everything differently, but it's like trying something new and you just might like it. My one of my older sisters, she eats the same exact thing when she goes to the same exact restaurant all the time. You go somewhere, she's like, I don't get that. I get the pink lemonade and this is that. And I'm just like, oh my God, you're so difficult. And it's like, there's so many, like, if you think of all the flavors that you've just tasted just in your neighborhood, just think of what else is out there. Think of the curries, think of the, you know, all of that stuff that is just like, hits the spot. Like, oh man, I want to eat with my hands. Oh yeah, like that type of thing. So, yeah.
Guys, y'all heard it. Y'all heard it here first. But before I cannot end this episode without diving into, you know, you're also an entrepreneur as well. So, you know, let's share your, you know, your businesses, you know, your mentorship. You also public speak, and I've already said this at the beginning of the episode. You're an amazing travel content creator, and it's people like you, it's people like us, and this platform. That's why I wanted this platform is to highlight people like yourself, and your content is absolutely amazing. So I just want to give this
Yeah.
time to you, to cross pollinate your platform, share all of your information, your businesses, how people can follow you.
All right. Well, my website is aperilife.com. That's APERILIFE. So it's a combination between aperitivo, which is the happy hour in Italy, and life. Because in the US, my life is a big happy hour. In Italy, it's an aperitivo. So it's a combination of those words, which describe the happiness of where I'm at and the joy of where I feel I'm at in my life now. Um, yeah, the mentoring and the coaching, it's something that kind of fell into my lap with doing it for university students. I mentor, coach, and public speak to university students that are studying abroad in Italy. And it is a cultural type of recognition, not recognition, but it's where they can see people like themselves who might understand exactly what they're going through. You know, it's like having someone who looks like you, who you can talk to. You know, they say, you know, like there wouldn't be a Coco without a Serena, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing that there are
Mm-hmm.
people that are just like you, and not just, you know, not just for Black women, but, you know, we get Black young men. We get, you know, like people from all over the world that study abroad in Florence. Florence is basically the study abroad capital of Italy. So that's what I do. That's what I kind of stumbled upon it, and I love it. And I've spoken to universities. I've had interns. I also have a group of women. We call ourselves the Fiori d'Italia. That's the flowers of Italy. Um, and that's basically because during the pandemic, I learned that the one thing that travels the world are flowers. You don't understand what's in your bouquet, but flowers come from all over the world. They're native to Australia,
Mm-hmm.
to the Netherlands. So we are the beautiful imported flowers of Italy. And we're on Facebook, and we're also on Instagram. And then of course just my handle is a Perry Life on basically all platforms. If you look up a Perry Life, you'll find basically me in some shape or form. And yeah, I'm really happy. I'm excited about this next chapter of me just, you know, like when I came to Italy, I was just like lonely, and you know, I fell in love with an Italian. I didn't fall in love with Italy. So I had to work to fall in love with Italy and to understand those nuances and those, you know, like those little passive aggressive things and how to check people and all that stuff. So it's a work in progress, but especially with the university students, it's showing them how to handle it in the short amount of time that they're going to be there. So 1 semester, 2 semesters, this is the best way to optimize your experience.
All right, perfect. And again, she shared that, y'all, but I'm gonna make sure that I have her information down in the show notes as well. Please make sure that y'all go check her out, go like her page, go, you know, engage with her content. She has amazing content, and giving you a different perspective. of view. She already shared that. It's a lot of negativity around. So many different countries, or somebody that's only been there, and there's no offense to them, but somebody that's
Yeah.
only been there one time already giving their impression about a country. You're talking to somebody and you're watching somebody on YouTube right now that has been to Europe, so many times, has so much content on Italy. Please make sure that y'all follow her and engage with her. And again, I told you at the beginning, your content is amazing. I really appreciate you for coming on this platform and sharing the information about Italy. And like I told you before, you family now. So I'm looking forward to collaborating with you in the future. And I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thanks for having me. This was fun. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, awesome. And hey, y'all already know my motto. I'll see you at the top because the bottom is just too crowded. Peace.